Yeah. We're rolling. We're rolling coal.
We're rolling coal. Rolling coal.
You know, there was like a really fun time in the 90s where like Dan Castellaneta was like on a lot of sitcoms, but no one recognized him as Homer because his normal speaking voice, he just doesn't use it on The Simpsons in like any character at all. So he could very easily disguise himself as things. And so we've been working our way through Everybody Loves Raymond right now, which the first season pretty hard to watch, like
it's rough,
very good or funny,
and then bad like opening. They wanted to do sort of a theme song without a theme song, and then later they were just like, oh yeah, no opening sequence at all.
No, it's just Raymond like building like a child's playground and getting trapped in it while explaining the very simple premise of the show, and then they realize, oh, we don't have to do this anymore. But Dan Castellaneta shows up as like a fussy sort of like PTA dad who's like running the soccer league or whatever. And it's just so nice to see my exact hairstyle represented on screen. Just the full back and sides, rocking it, being with a sexy wife. It makes me feel good about myself.
I was messaging you, AJ. I think you're kind of entering your Peter Friedman era.
Yeah.
Like having found some pictures of sexy Peter Friedman from sort of around your age.
Yeah.
I think this is huge for you. And you're going into a show too, so you're going to be able to really lean into the persona.
Yeah. More like Peter Fuckman.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast that leans into sexy Peter Friedman.
All right.
I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. And we're back for another week of case studies in the pop culture of a dying empire. And it's just us boys. It's just us boys.
Fuck these episodes of Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah, they were a little too adult for AJ. He didn't understand that.
That's a question, AJ. Yeah, you know, we're going back here now to Whit's End one more time for some more Whit's Endless Summer.
Just one more time? This is it?
One more time before finally the Devious Dutchman returns in March.
Yeah,
Josh is right here.
Yeah.
That's me. No, I'm not the Devious Dutchman. I'm the Deviant Dutchman.
Oh,
yeah, that's that new
I love
guy.
your DeviantArt account. It's nothing but Goku's.
Yeah, you know it. It's Whit's Endless Summer, of course, continues apace as we listen to more episodes of Adventures in Odyssey, the evangelical Christian radio drama produced by Focus on the Family. As we close in also on our visit to Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80995, to celebrate their 1000th episode. How did it feel to you guys to return once again for the first time this year to Odyssey?
Bad, real bad, because so I had a really bad time with these, Josh, and I'm so mad that you've done this to me again.
Okay, I'm not allowing Josh to take credit for something that is 100% my virtuous doing.
That's true. I didn't pick these episodes.
Oh wow. Okay.
This was like, I don't know, Adventures in Odyssey's version of Come and See.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say its version of Come and Seaman, and I was like, get your fucking mind out of the gutter. And then I realized it was my brain that was in the gutter.
Yeah,
and I felt really bad.
That was a very famous porn parody of the Soviet classic Come and See.
No, this is where the protein is. This is really where Odyssey gets its protein.
We're bulking up.
This is an episode that has a two-parter and then two other single episodes, but it's really kind of a three-parter.
Yeah.
And really, in a theoretical sense, it's a four-parter of just watching people get more and more miserable.
Yeah, this
Odyssey.
Is a parade of suffering is the best way I can describe these episodes.
Yeah, was McCusker going through like a divorce at the time? Like, what the fuck?
Say, he's Catholic. He can't do that. Who wrote these episodes? Who wrote these episodes? Henry Nouwen?
More like Henry Adjective.
Or wait, no. Who wrote these episodes? Who wrote these episodes?
Brian is going through note cards. He's just shifting through them.
Who wrote these? Was it perhaps the author of Lament of a Son? Was it noted philosopher Noted philosopher Nicholas Walterstorff.
Real Calvin college heads know.
A brick wall has appeared behind Brian, and I am just throwing tomatoes at it.
And I'm slapping a bass right here on stage, baby.
So yes, The Worst of All Possible Worlds, a podcast about nothing. We're here to talk about episode 318, A Touch of Healing, Part 1. This was written by the inimitable Paul McCusker and first aired on June 10, 1995 on Nationwide Radio.
Now we're pretty far along. This show's coming close to 10 years old.
Yeah.
At 8 years old. They know what they want to do now. They know what they're wanting to write. Paul McCusker is in England with his wife. He's Anglican at this point in time. That's something you needed to know for some reason. And
I do wonder, did that affect the writing at all? It's something that I wouldn't necessarily be able to clock because I wasn't really sort of in the world of all this like the two of you were. But does it sound like he got a little bit more like British over the course of this?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I feel like honestly, AJ, if anybody would notice a difference, it would be you.
Yeah,
because you've been
on the
exposed to
accelerated
this stuff firsthand.
Staunch unionist that I am. And as we all are on this unionist podcast.
No!
God save our king. He's doing fine.
He's doing great.
Yeah, maybe this just made McCusker into more of a C.S. Lewis impersonator.
I think
with how
that
he wrote.
might be a bit of it. Yeah, because we've talked about C.S. Lewis, obviously. We did the Screw Tape Letters episode. Yeah. And with C.S. Lewis's whole thing, it's about when you come across a crucible in your life, how do you overcome it? And the way that you overcome it is just by being like, God did this, and God did this so that I could become a better guy, right? Yeah. That's what I think ties all four of today's episodes together.
I mean, that's why they call him Crucible Slayer Lewis. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's weird because whenever I come across a crucible, I just see your spouses with the devil. Yeah. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, could you give us a period accurate accent of how that would sound? Brian, if you were to accuse, let's say, Goody Proctor of being with the devil.
I can only say the one line in the period and location specific accent that is 100% accurate.
Yeah, we would love to hear it. Yeah, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, okay. You drank a jam. You drank a jam to kill Goody Proctor.
Please come see Brian in Witches in Salem, premiering at the end of March.
Yeah, play that I am not in. Because no one will cast me.
So you might be hearing from our voice that we really don't want to start talking about this episode. We're very tired, but we're all sort of in between things right now. Mm-hmm. You know, AJ, you've got your show coming up.
Thighs.
Brian's starting working on a show.
Yeah, I was at the show this morning. Yeah, and Josh, you are doing a big round table.
Yeah,
I always want to say talkback because it's after a play, but it's not a talkback.
Yeah,
you're not asking questions from the audience. You're not having them say, how do they memorize all those lines?
How do they memorize all those lines?
That's a great idea, though, to do a talkback where none of the people on stage were in the play. And so
so they just have to guess
random
third party. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looked like they spent a lot of time just reading them over and over again.
No, we gotta get back to it. I'm sorry. We gotta talk about A Touch of Healing Part 1.
So here we are at the very beginning in the Bible room. Jack happens across Jason, who's making some modifications to his father's invention, the imagination station.
Well, Jack and I got into a debate. Mm-hmm. We were talking about Jenny and Zachary.
What about them?
Well, Jenny's blind and Zachary's in a wheelchair. And we were debating about what kind of experience they'd have if they got
I almost got bingo.
I don't get it.
Well, the imagination station's built around the imagination, right?
Right.
So if Jenny got in and she could imagine herself being able to see, then she should be able to see in the imagination station, right? Likewise, if Zachary could imagine that he was able to walk again, then he should be able to walk in the imagination station. It makes sense, right?
Well, sort of, I guess. But, if I could imagine that I knew how to fly, does that mean I'd be able to fly in the imagination station?
Well, that's what I want to find out.
Well, that was Connie, not Jack. I just listened to this again today. That's fine. Yeah, Jason is working with some kids who have a lot of continuity in this town, right? We have had episodes centering specifically on Jenny and specifically on Zachary and their disabilities before coming to this episode.
And to be clear, these characters are 100% defined by their disabilities. Like it's really kind of the only thing that you know about them. I mean, I guess Jenny
gets a little bit more.
She's got a
room.
little bit, but Zachary, his deal is pretty much he's a paraplegic and he's sullen. That's like all we really know about that kid.
And it's so funny that Jason is like reprogramming the imagination station by disassembling it. Like that's not how reprogramming
it's
works.
fully mechanical. Like an old adding machine.
But isn't it one of those things like, because this is the episode that really proves to me what the imagination station is, which is it's the Matrix. It's not you walk in and experience it as your real self. It's that you are jacked into this machine and you are able to do things inside of it that you are not able to do outside of it, which leads to Connie's question about would I be able to fly in the imagination station? Be like, yeah, but if you crash into the ground, you'd be dead for real.
Right. Yeah, because your imagination would let that happen. If you die in the imagination station, you die in real life. Which makes it even more sinister that Whit keeps throwing these children in prison or trying to get like Jezebel to do child sacrifices to them to Baal.
Or sending them to hell.
I think it's good. How else are you going to build character if not for experiencing actual mortal danger, right?
Did either of you see Assassin's Creed, the film, the Michael Fassbender movie Assassin's Creed?
No, AJ, we did not.
So hold on. In the video game,
welcome to Fancy Movie Time, the fancy film podcast for fancy folks. Here's Fancy AJ.
So here's the thing. In the Assassin's Creed video games, obviously you're just kind of jacked into a pod like you would be in the Matrix, right? It's all in the guy's head. But for some reason, in the movie, they decided to hook Michael Fassbender up to like what is basically one of those like baby bounce things that you put in the doorway so they can like jump up and down.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah. Like we actually have for VR sets where you can like run if you're wearing socks and then your feet just kind of slide on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they decide to put him in that and have him like, so when he is Altair or whatever, he's doing backflips and he's actually doing backflips in the space and they keep cutting back to it. Like it's him doing the backflips in the space. And so I think that's actually what the imagination station is that people go inside and they're like fully hooked up to all of this stuff and they're running around at the speed of sound. But I can't believe that fucking Odyssey predicted Assassin's Creed. You're welcome, Ubisoft.
Yeah, absolutely. A famous collaboration here between, like, Focus on the Family actually received a good chunk of licensing money for the idea. For their patent.
That's why you fist fight the Pope at the end of the second one.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They ended up turning down that money because they didn't want a game that positively portrayed any Muslims.
Oh, that all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jason is very excited, right, about the prospect of, restoring abilities to disabled kids in the imagination station.
Yeah.
Jack, on the other hand, is not on board at all.
I mean, what's Jack worried about?
Well, beats me. I think he's worried in the same way he was worried about my putting in Bible-based arcade games downstairs.
Of
How
course.
so?
Oh, you know how Jack is. Even though I fixed the volume so they wouldn't be so loud and made it so the players would have to learn their Bibles before progressing to the next levels, he's still not satisfied. He says there are problems with the basic concept behind it. He's not sure that staring at a video screen and fiddling with electronic knobs is helpful.
Knobs?
He sounds like my father.
Oh, that's no big surprise.
No, sometimes Jack and my dad have the same problem. They're too careful. Even when they're being adventurous, they won't take risks. See, I like risks. And if you're going to reach out to kids, you have to be willing to take risks.
Okay, so we made a bonus episode at the beginning of the month about that video game episode that we otherwise weren't going to cover until I listened to this and they talk about it like 5 times this episode.
Well, and I'm so glad we did talk about it because a number of like themes and ideas from that episode, they pull through into this one.
It's continuity just getting out of control here for kids who are going to hear 1 out of every like 7 episodes on the radio. Like,
sure,
a big revelation that all of these arcade games were controlled with knobs, like an old fucking like Magnavox Odyssey.
Well, they have to be because you have to input Bible passages at the end of every level. So it's like, well, what is it? Is it like the entire alphabet on one knob?
It's like an index typewriter.
Yeah,
it's basically he just has a label maker that you have to like crank this way and that, and that's how you, because we know So there's one video game that has illustrated to us what the mechanics are, which is basically an endless runner where you have the ability to utilize any one of the 10 plagues at any time.
It's Temple Run, but you can throw plagues back at the Egyptians pursuing
and so
you.
now we know that you have to
big frog
that you have to do the plagues by just turning a dial that points at 10 different notches.
They all have little symbols on them. There's just I love the one for Big Frog.
That's so funny. Just yesterday I went to Wonderland. I don't know if any of you guys have been there. It's an arcade.
The sex party?
No.
Oh.
My friend Alice went there once.
It is an arcade in Bushwick.
Okay.
And it is all new arcade games, right? These are
yes.
cabinets that are sort of built to sort of push what is possible in arcade gaming. It's all very silly and fun and cute and twee, and some of it is like way too much that way.
Yeah.
But I had that thought about like, oh my God, you could make the fucking, 10 Plagues Infinite Runner Simulator and build that as an actual arcade game with the 10-notch dial and put it up in a place. I mean, that's a funny idea.
And then you have to put in the Bible questions between levels. And unlike what AJ said, which sounds insane, instead it's multiple choice, but there's 10 different answers, and you have to pick one of those 10.
And knowing how pedantic they are, they're all probably like right next to each other.
Right,
like
right.
it's like
is it verse 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? It's like which of these 10 consecutive
Is it
verses?
Bildab the shoe height? Mildab the who height?
Actually, it's Wonderville. Sorry, Brian, I fucked it. Everybody go to Wonderville.
No,
go
it's
to
okay.
Wonderland. Go to the sex party. I don't care.
You know how you get to Wonderville? You have to climb the Wonder Wall.
After all, you are that for me, AJ.
Oh, thank you.
All in all, it's just another brick in the Wonder Wall.
We now have the core sort of conflict framed up here. And it's framed as just a battle of like, should we use technology or should we not use technology?
Yeah.
This is what's going to hang over this entire episode where we've got Jack the Luddite versus Jason, who I guess works for fucking, OpenAI or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He's we should just let tech do whatever it wants because ultimately technological advancement will make people's lives better. And we can't know whether it'll work or not without trying.
Yeah.
Right. And in a certain sense, like, I agree with that sort of creatively. Like, if you're making art, I think that's kind of okay. I think you should be willing to take risks because ultimately it's not going to harm anyone and it doesn't necessarily have to go through. But Jason seems to discount the fact that he's experimenting on children.
Yeah, that seems like it should be the bigger issue, but this is maintaining a sort of moral valence on the same level of should we make a arcade game?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, at all. Period, full
Explicitly.
stop.
Later on, they make this parallel explicitly. There is a B plot in this episode as well.
Thematically, we have this connection between the two plots that's about the matter of healing. What does it mean to be healed? And so we are very suddenly introduced to a brand new character who could have been around before, but just wasn't. Connie's grandmother. And this is her father's mother.
Right.
Who lives with Connie and her mom, does not live with her father.
I'd rather be here with you and your mother than anywhere else.
Good.
Besides, I couldn't stay with Bill. I mean, your father. He and his wife fight all the time. I wouldn't have been able to rest. I don't see how their marriage will last. Your father's a self-centered blockhead.
You shouldn't say that, Grandma.
He's my son, and I can say it if I like. I've said it to his face. As long as he insists on acting like a 5-year-old, I don't know how any woman can put up with him. He needs to become a Christian. I've told him again and again. It's the only way.
It's the only way to be sure.
Bill got that big dick. That's why all the women put up with him.
Because his stroke game is just unbelievable.
Stroke game on point.
Man. Look, that man loves cruise ships. I'll tell you, that's a very specific kind of guy.
Do you think Bill Kendall goes to hedonism too?
Yeah. AJ, as a man who was trapped in a cruise ship once and who hates cruise ship, your assertion is that every man who goes on a cruise ship has exceptional stroke game?
No, I'm just saying that certain ones do, and you can always I could always tell during my tenure on boat which ones had the extreme stroke game because they were bopping around from like cabin to cabin, like it was like you would see them like wandering
the
the
Grim
halls.
Reaper knocking at each door.
R.I.P. that pussy.
AJ is just in his cabin, painting lamb's blood over the arch.
But yeah, what we're listening to here, this voice that we're hearing is that of Mildred Kendall, Connie's grandma, Bill's mother. She was mentioned, it's worth noting, in a couple episodes, but these are the only episodes where we actually hear her. So she pretty much just exists as a plot device, which for this show is not at all uncommon.
Sure.
And her whole deal is, well, my son just needs to become a Christian. That's why this character exists.
It's also to reinforce what a piece of shit he is, because he hasn't converted, and
he's
also
divorced.
she apparently she's supposed to be very nice. Connie and her mom seem to really love her, right?
Yeah.
And love having her around. But I would argue that I think that she's not perhaps the nicest person if she goes around calling her son a piece of shit and then refusing to live with him.
She doesn't call him a piece of shit. She calls him a blockhead.
Yeah, but in Odyssey
her
terms,
version
that's
of a
what that
piece of
is,
shit, though.
right?
But he is a piece of shit.
Yeah, I know.
I don't necessarily have a problem with this. I have other issues with this character, and we'll get there.
I can tell why he's a piece of shit. Maybe because of your fucking parenting, Mildred. I hope something really bad happens to you. Oh, no.
It's okay, Mildred. I'll be praying against you.
We should do more praying against people.
Absolutely. Mildred clearly has. So that's our B plot. Connie's grandma.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's marked for death from the very beginning. First interaction, it's we know exactly where this is going, right?
It's like an episode of Family Ties where it's just oh, here's this new guy who's Michael J. Fox's favorite uncle. He's going to be dead by the end of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So back at the Imagination Station, Jack and Jason are now fully going at it, having a debate.
Yeah.
This is effectively an extension of the previous conflict about arcade games that we talked about in our Bobus. Another thing that's worth noting here, Jack says that he's been having some strange dreams lately.
Yeah.
What?
Jack
is that?
No, Jack has visions. I think we've had a couple references to this before with the Israelites thing.
Yeah, I know. We have.
Yeah.
We have. I just, what?
Just pointing that up. It's going to pay off later on.
Spiritual gifts, AJ, spiritual gifts.
Right, but isn't that witchcraft?
Not if it's from the Lord.
No. He's not making the dreams
But how-
happen. He's not
but how-
conjuring them.
Right, but how can you tell the difference between a dream you've conjured and a dream that's just been given to you by the Lord?
Well, maybe you just need to be more in tune with the Lord, you fucking Catholic.
I saw Goody Jack with the devil.
Maybe you are still thinking with your mind, you genius.
Jason tells Jack in no uncertain terms that he's going to just basically fucking throw Jenny into the Imagination Station to give her sight, whether Jack likes it or not.
Right.
Hey, thanks for coming so quickly.
But I'm confused. You said it's a new Imagination Station adventure. Designed for me? What'd you do, write it in Braille?
Well, something like that.
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all.
Also, you could create sensory experiences for people without sight. It's not I feel if she were to do any other Imagination Station adventure, she'd have a great time.
Well, and this is exactly what ends up happening.
Yeah.
That she has her adventure, right? But she does not experience the sighted component of it because that is not something that she has access to. She never had the ability to see. Therefore, she does not experience sight there.
Well, she had an accident. She lost her ability to see. She wasn't born blind, but it's been a long time now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the other blind character that appears later in the show who was born blind.
Got it. Okay.
But but it's the way the show kind of it almost is like they forgot that when they got to this episode. But here's her coming out of the Imagination Station and blindsiding Jason.
There we go.
Well, how was it? Did you like the adventure?
It was great.
Really?
Yeah, I got to meet Mary and Martha and Lazarus. It was wonderful.
I didn't know you programmed it for that trip. Oh, what fun.
Yeah, and I learned some things I didn't know before.
What fun.
Like when Lazarus guided me to the center of Bethany. And
Wait, hold on. Why did Lazarus need to guide you?
What do you mean, why? The same reason I need anybody to guide me in strange places.
Because you're blind.
It's like, what do you think, you dumb bitch? Jesus, Jason.
If you're just hanging out, if you're doing the Bethany adventure, and they actually do this in an episode. I don't know if it came before or after this one, but they do I think a two-parter in Bethany. And it's not that exciting. You get a guy who rises from the dead at one point, but for the rest of it, people are just kind of hanging out. I think that's also when Jesus gets the perfume on his feet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
No, again, this is not a thrilling Bible story. No. Other than Lazarus does come back.
And Jack is like, oh, I'm so jealous. What a thrill.
I love you can do this anytime you want, man. You own it.
I just love the little lilt that he has to his voice. Oh, how fun.
Exactly how he sounds before he dives into a giant vault of coins.
Yeah, no, exactly. Same intention. He just pulled the Scrooge McDuck intention right on through. But yes, Jenny had fun, but it was not what Jason was hoping for.
No.
And even though Jason is disappointed in this outcome, Jenny is not.
Yeah.
What's wrong, Jason?
Oh, don't mind him. He's playing the nutty professor today, that's all.
Oh, because I was beginning to think that he fixed the machine so I could see.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
It's funny. I was talking to Lazarus about it, and he was saying how he had died so that Christ would be glorified in raising him from the dead. In the same way, my being blind is also part of God's greater plan for his glory.
That's right, Jenny. That's absolutely right.
All right.
So, Josh, you're going to have some feelings about this particular line, huh?
Yeah, I heard this and it just fucking hit me like a sack of bricks. And not in a fun way. So I have this very distinct memory from when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. For those of you who have been listening to the show for a while, you probably already know that I have cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic disease that causes a number of physical complications. And one of those complications is difficulty digesting food, specifically foods with a lot of fat. And so I have to take enzymes that help their reconstituted pig pancreas, which is kind of cool. Those enzymes do the work of the enzymes that my pancreas is unable to put out there. Mm-hmm. The thing is, though, even when taking those pills, well, first of all, I also am severely attention deficit guy, right? Like full on classic ADHD case. So growing up, remembering to take those pills was always a real fucking challenge for me.
Oh, sure.
And even though my parents obviously did their best, there would be times that I would forget. And also, dialing in the right dosage, that sort of thing can also be difficult. And even then, there would sometimes just be blockages. So I have a very distinct memory of just having this really severe, bad evening of unbelievable discomfort. My whole GI tract was basically fucking blocked and just feeling some of the most intense pain I've ever experienced in my life, right? Full on just like insane cramping and just, screaming out, like fully screaming out in pain, not being able to handle that pain, not being able to understand why anything like this could happen, especially to a kid, right? This is not something that should happen to anybody, but it's especially not something that should happen to a kid, especially not a kid who loves the Lord, right? Does everything right to try to be a good kid.
Yeah.
And I just remember crying out, and like my mom was there, and I was just like, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Why? And she just said, I don't know. And just held me. And I held her. And it's not so fucking simple,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I get so angry on a primal level when on a children's show, for the sake of ease, right? And for the sake of taking something and presenting it to children in a way that is more digestible for you as an adult, you flatten a lived experience and you say, well, it's just because that's what God wants for you. I summarily reject that. I think it's lazy from a theological perspective, obviously. I think that it's lazy from a helping kids understand the world perspective. And it's also just bad fucking storytelling.
Yeah. I think there's also an added obscenity to it because the story of Lazarus is right. He's a friend of Jesus. He dies. Jesus finds out, famously weeps, goes back and then raises Lazarus from the dead. And this is sort of towards the end of the ministry. And it's him kind of doing this big act that he's never done before. And Lazarus is saying, oh, yeah, this was because the whole purpose of my experience dying was to glorify Jesus and was to show his power to the other people who were there. And that your blindness, Jenny, or to the blind child that listens to this show, because again, this is a sizable demographic for Adventures in Odyssey, your disability is there to be edifying to the other people in your life.
Yes. And there is a way that people fetishize disability, and this is not unique, obviously, to Christians. This is something that just exists everywhere. And I think particularly like in individualist Western culture, it is in American culture specifically.
Well, we thought we were the ones who were teaching radio.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that. That's all it is. And the idea that you exist, as you put it, Brian, for the edification of others, or as like an example of, oh, well, you know, at least it's not like that poor person, you know, I think for one thing, it shows the sort of limits of compassion that these people have, the writers of this show, right? And focus on the family as an organization.
Yeah. They
can only see themselves as the protagonist of reality. And that, of course, means that other people who are sort of like adjacent to them can only be seen as accessories to their own protagonism. There's no words for it. Obscene is exactly the right word. It makes me so angry. Listening to these episodes, and this piece in particular, just filled me with the like primal rage that I haven't felt in a little while. We'll talk more about it, but that's opening thoughts.
Because we got more coming.
About this
Opening
arc.
salvo. It's also, and here's the thing: if Lazarus were to come back from the dead and actually talk to somebody, he would probably say, "So there's nothing on the other side. Everything is dark and abyssal, so live your life the best you can, because now I have to live forever. I can't ever die again. I have been cursed by my best friend because he was selfish to bring me fucking back. I was finally at rest, and that motherfucker brought me back."
Wait, is this a Catholic belief that Lazarus doesn't die a second time?
No, it's just kind of...
This is an AJ belief?
AJ headcanon.
Yeah, this might be not. I don't know.
There are a couple of medieval sort of mythological characters often referred to as the wandering Jew. Sorry, I didn't come up with it. Medieval people were fucked up. Sorry. That is just like, or the eternal Jew. Again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
I apologize on behalf of my entire race. But like, yeah, the idea of like, not just, you know, as a synecdoche of the entire Jewish people or something, but literally like just a Jewish guy who's 1,000 years old and wandering around Europe. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe it connects with some sort of older idea of Lazarus.
I feel like if I were to live forever, I'd do some wandering. You know, I feel like that's at a certain point, that's all you really can do.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you just want to go hike. I remember that was a question in Sunday school, though. Is like, so does he just like die again? Off screen? It's like, yeah, probably.
Lazarus died on the way back to his home planet.
Yeah. Where's Lazarus?
Now that we've confirmed that Jenny cannot see in the imagination station, Jason's got another great idea. So we'll remember, of course, Zachary, the sullen kid who lost access to his legs and bitched to Lucy about it in a couple episodes back. Well, Jason thinks maybe we could use the imagination station to give him access to his legs. And in fact, Connie encourages Zachary to go to Whit's End to talk to Jason about it. She's like, oh, there's something there that might be fun for you.
Yeah,
and
poor Connie is just caught in the middle of this. She's just like, yeah, this sounds nice.
She's dealing with a lot.
And so Jason hops right into the imagination station with Zachary because he wants to see it firsthand, I guess.
Jason, I'm scared.
Here, take my hand. I'll help you.
Well, what if it doesn't work?
What if it does and you didn't try? Look, I'm here to catch you if you fall.
I don't know.
Just close your eyes and imagine you can walk. Then stand up and do it.
Okay, I will. Eyes closed and...
That's it. You can do it. Just hold my hand. There you go.
Yeah.
Come on. Just stand up. There you go, Zach.
Jason, I'm standing up. I'm really standing up.
It works. It really works.
And then the British army chases after them. It's revolutionary times, and they run even.
Because they're in the Paul Revere imagination station.
The British are coming.
Yeah. You know.
The British are coming.
The most thrilling of imagination station adventures.
That's right. We remember this adventure.
Well, if you remember, AJ, that wasn't even an imagination station episode. That was just Whit.
That was just Whit talking
from a book that I guess Whit had also written.
That's right.
This episode's like whole approach to disability is bad. And don't get me wrong, it's very bad.
Oh, I think it's good.
But the actual like logistics of this imagination station are still really baffling.
At this point, they have pretty solidly established that the imagination station is just a little tiny rocket thing that you sit down in a chair.
And then you kind of like zone out on. But what's weird about that is that a little bit later when they actually come out of it, when the machine turns off, you hear Zachary fall.
Yes.
So that he was standing and then collapses down.
Yeah. So this imagination station this time is just, I guess, a large room. Very echoey room.
Like the holodeck.
Yeah.
I mean, I always just picture the holodeck.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the holodeck, because the holodeck it's not like the holodeck can't cure people's disabilities to my knowledge.
Right.
I have not seen it as much Star Trek.
Yeah, no,
as the two of you.
you're just a guy, and now you're in a different place. But it doesn't change anything about your fundamental way of perceiving things, right?
Yeah.
You're just wearing. It's just Patrick Stewart wearing a funny costume.
This is the more uncomfortable question for me, is that because it doesn't work on Jenny's blindness, right? And they do kind of try to wave this away, but it does work on Zachary's. What it leads to me as the listener to think is that Zachary's disability is entirely psychological.
Sure.
That he can stand at any given time. It just takes the imagination station sort of short-circuiting it and giving him the ability and confidence to believe that he can walk in order for him to walk. And this gets really, really dicey once we start getting into what the rest of the episode is trying to teach you.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think they thought it that far.
No,
out.
that's it. They're just not applying their brains that much.
And I know,
to
of
it.
course, they didn't. But I also think that's an interesting point. If you follow this line of logic all the way through to its conclusion, if you do the work that they constantly refuse to do, if his whole thing is fucking psychosomatic, then we're telling an entirely different story about disability now.
Right, exactly. And it's not like that. I'm not trying to come here and be like CinemaSins, like, dang, you got the imagination station. This logic doesn't make any fucking sense. But it just means that it actually fundamentally changes the story that they're telling.
Right.
This is I don't know if this is an episode about disability so much as it is about, like, I don't know, kids need to work harder to walk.
No, AJ, you're right. It's not about disability. It's about science is bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
And honestly, hold that thought too. Put a pin in that about like kids needing to work harder to walk, because we will get there later. For now, though, we're back with Connie. She's still hanging out with her grandma who, well, you know, she's on her way to fucking dying. Like,
yeah.
That's really all this is, but we might as well listen to what that sounds like.
Knock, knock. Hi, Grandma.
Hi, Connie.
So what happened to you?
I bleeped when I should have blipped, I guess. A lot of fuss over nothing.
Are you feeling all right?
A little tired. I'm sorry about all this.
Oh, forget about it. Look, Mom's on her way back from Connellsville. It took me a little while to track her down.
She doesn't need to rush back.
Well, it's dinner time. She's supposed to be home by now anyway.
You tell her this is what happens to people who work too hard. They wind up with tubes and wires sticking out like a radio junk shop.
Jesus.
This direction is so weird.
But they also do this thing that Odyssey does a lot, which is that they really overcomplicate like the amount of characters that we're introduced to.
Yeah.
We are first introduced to a Dr. Oliver who we never see, a British nurse.
The British nurse. I made the note about the British. I have a note in here. I have a note in here, and it's just all caps. British nurse with a question mark.
I imagine Paul McCusker really went to bat for this. He's like, no. She needs to be British.
We
need British representation on the show.
Represent the NHS.
And you know the reason why was because McCusker must have gone to the doctor recently and seen a really hot British nurse, and it's just like, come on, gotta put her in there. I can't keep watching these joggers. We gotta put this in. But then it turns out that Dr. Oliver isn't even her real doctor. It's Dr. Franklin. So who the hell is Dr. Oliver?
I love that you were keeping track of this, AJ.
This is one of those. They sent Dr. Oliver through the no-no door in his first episode.
Well, that's the thing is, it's one of those like realistic derogatory things. He's doing things, it's a shift. It's a changeover. You have nurses and doctors shifting, a couple things fall into cracks. We'll get to that a little bit later. It's adding that to try to like add to the drama of the scene, but it's just not necessary.
No, and it just makes it
just get to the point of it.
Like more boring and confusing. Yeah.
It's just like there's so many things that you have considered for this and you should not have. Like congrats for showing your work, but boy.
And the thing is, there is like maybe 10 total minutes of this in like a 25-ish minute episode.
Yeah.
And the whole reason all of this happens is basically to lead up to this clip right here where Connie prays for her grandma.
There's something I want you to get for me.
Okay.
My prayer book. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, here it is.
Somewhere in the middle, family prayers. I think I have a ribbon in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll see one or two that are appropriate for the situation.
Connie's grandmother has gotten her to pray for her and is like really, really driving like, pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. She has a little prayer book, which feels a little bit more Catholic than Protestant to me, but I guess there are Protestant prayer books. And the prayer that Connie picks out sure sounds like it was sold at some bookstore somewhere.
Yeah.
It's
There's
fucking
just a bunch
greeting
of
card.
like Virgin Mary candles around her bed as she's dying. Little saint cards propped up here.
And she just gets increasingly Catholic the closer she is to death. She's just baptizing babies, buying indulgences.
The Pope's at the edge of the bed.
And there's kind of what this episode does is this sort of like overlay thing where it's like cutting back and forth between the hospital and the imagination station adventure.
There's a really cool transition that I didn't grab where they like start up the imagination station and then just that like whooshing sound sort of fades into hospital sounds. Again, it's like something that only happens in a Paul McCusker episode because he actually understands the form now.
I mean, there are so many things to get angry about in this episode, but the thing that like I thought was really like subtly insidious was just like it's trying to tell you the proper way to not only grieve someone who you lose, but like how to properly die. Like there's a lot of times where Connie's grandma's just like, well, if it's my time to go home, it's my time to go. And she's just like, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. And the truth is the process of dying for anyone who's ever like been through that.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never died before.
Yeah, no, that's true. But like, but been like adjacent to somebody who does. It's not even the most Christian people, right? The most like steadfast in their faith don't face down death when you're in a hospital bed being like, oh, if it's my time, it's my time. There can be fear there.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this episode like props her up as like the ideal way for a Christian to die, which is don't worry about yourself. You're going to meet Jesus.
Well, I wonder how much of that is, again, just like wanting to sort of protect children from like feeling the fear, that maybe there's this idea, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, but maybe there's this idea that if they were to portray Connie's grandma's emotions as being a little bit more complex about her own impending death, that could really scare kids. As opposed to, say, sending Eugene to hell in the imagination station.
That was what I was going to say. But to a different point, right? Sending Eugene to hell is to get them to be Christians.
Yeah,
if someone shows a lack of faith in their last few moments, that would dissuade kids from becoming Christian. Like, it's all very well
Heaven
calibrated.
will overpower death, but hell is forever. So hell's the thing that you need to worry about, not the death part. Because death is healing, but also don't do it to yourself. Okay. Connie's grandmother is going to die, but she's like combination just like, I'm going to die. And also just like totally in denial about her own illness. It is a very weird sort of valence to portray here. I think I said valence earlier in this episode. Today is Valence Day for Brian.
Happy Valence Day.
It's V-Day for those listening.
Once we get back over to the imagination station in Whit's End, Zachary's mom has shown up.
Yeah.
And Zachary, now having once again experienced the ability to walk, is not too happy with returning to his normal life.
I don't care about dinner. I want to go back in the machine.
Well, you can't, Zachary. We have to go home.
You don't understand, Mom. I don't want to go home. I want to get back into the imagination station. Explain it to her, Jason.
Zachary, I think that...
Explain what?
He reprogrammed the imagination station so I could walk in it.
What?
You mean it worked?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed, too.
Impressed? I'm speechless. Is it possible?
Yep, I walked and ran, and it was great.
Well, that's nice. That doesn't sound too bad.
Sounds great.
But then the conversation goes forward even further.
Well, let's go home, Zachary. We can sort it out there.
What? No, you don't get it. Didn't you hear what happened? I want to get back in.
I heard, but you're not going back in. At least not tonight. You're coming home now.
No, I won't. I want to stay here.
Zachary.
Listen, Zachary.
We'll have plenty of chances.
Hey, no, none of you guys are getting it. I don't want to go home. I can walk in there, and I don't want to leave it. I never want to leave the imagination station. Ever.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want to walk. What? Like, just let your kid enjoy walking. And also, look, they're going to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater because they want to destroy this fucking thing, right?
Yeah,
they want to, because they do not trust technology. But, like, who's to say you can't use this miracle technology to, like, help with rehab? I don't know. Do an entirely virtual simulation that helps them relearn how to walk. Like, it's infuriating how much the writers of this show don't want kids to be happy, or at least don't want kids to like get what they want.
No, you're right.
Kids,
you're actually right. I think you're onto something, AJ, that they don't want kids to be happy. Not really.
Right.
Because there is this thing, and we did not listen to the episode, but we should listen to it at some point. There's an Adventures in Odyssey episode about, and it's one of the ones that sticks in my head the most, where Connie goes through a series of tribulations, and she repeats a mantra to herself to get over it, where she says, "Count it all joy."
Yeah.
And the idea is that, look, you might not always be happy, but you have to take these experiences away, and you have to ultimately, rest in God's joy or whatever, even if you're not personally feeling happy in that moment. Because also, the pursuit of happiness as a means and ends to itself is sort of an inherently sinful thing. It's very Protestant. We have to make peace with our suffering and just kind of soldier on, rather than trying to actively find the light that we are looking for. The only real light is that which ought to come from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, right?
Right. And as you said before, AJ, in this reality, in this version of the imagination station, Zachary was literally walking. He was actually standing up out of his wheelchair and then fell down when the machine was deactivated, which means that this thing does, in fact, do something for you, which should lead to further research and development and manufacturing and monetization, perhaps even.
Yeah.
Think about how much money they could make.
Yeah.
The patent alone.
But again, that would give kids what they want, and it would make Zachary right, and he can't be, because if you give a kid a cookie, he's going to be like, I will only ever have cookies for the rest of my life, because that's how kids work.
Well, that's the thing, is like you're creating a false reality, and you're letting a child escape into a false reality, which is what other mediums do, but not radio. Radio's really special.
Yeah.
It's just the one been teaching us this whole time, rather than being an escape. No child has ever escaped through the radio, but TV, video games, and whatever they're trying to say with this thing. This is just to say, this is a concept that comes back massively in a later serialized saga. The Novacom saga is all about like science as a cure, and technological devices as a way of repairing things. So this is a conversation that will recur sometime on this show.
I do think, though, that Jason should be executed by firing squad. Just like, I just think that's something that should happen to him.
Jason just he's behaving incorrectly this entire time. And it's like the show knows some of why it's bad, but not all of why it's bad. Like this guy's just like dragging kids over here, not telling them anything, and is like, hey, you know how you got into a car accident 3 years ago and you'll never be able to walk again? You can walk again for 15 minutes and then you have to go home.
I think where this episode lands on like, you must always obey the parents kind of thing is bad, frankly, because it doesn't teach kids to like question authority figures. He should ask the parents before he does this.
Yes.
To their kids.
Which, okay. The episode does sort of make that point a little later on.
Where they land on it is that they're in the wrong because children need to obey their parents. Like that is sort of the fine thing, and not just like, hey, this is the person that is the primary caretaker of this child who loves this child, who is like raising them to be a person. You should maybe check with them before you throw them into a machine with a strange man.
Yeah. And one thing that comes up a lot with Zachary, because they don't know how to give him any other character beats, is that he has to do his rehabilitation exercises, right? And he doesn't want to do them. He has difficulty doing them, and it sucks, and he hates it. And it's not making him better. It's not bringing back his ability to walk. And unfortunately, the show's angle is like, yes, but if you do them, maybe one day you will walk again.
Yeah.
Which is not the reality. It's in that case, you are keeping your muscles from atrophying and causing further health problems for yourself, right? Getting your blood vessels clotted up and things like that, where Adventures in Odyssey just doesn't have enough of a perspective. Paul McCusker and Phil Waller and everybody don't have enough of a perspective of what all of this actually is.
Right, they're too distracted by nurses.
But this comes back to the thing that you were saying a little bit earlier, AJ, too, about how like ultimately him not going along with it is his exercises and shit. Like, that is a sign of insufficient diligence, which is therefore a moral failing. So this carries us through to part 2.
Bill Kendall is on a cruise. Mm-hmm. Connie, this is a very long scene. I didn't clip any of it because
it's boring.
Connie is going to pray harder than ever for Grandma. And
ooh.
And and remember, her mom, June, is faithless, and she is being much more realistic. And also just because she's an adult, she knows what the medical side of this is. She knows that her mother-in-law is going to die. And Connie is like, no, but I'm praying so much.
And I think there might be an interesting lesson here especially for Christian kids, that like, hey, sometimes you can pray as hard as you want, and it might not get the result that you want. But,
right, which is why you have to go back to praying in Latin.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because that's the only language God speaks.
I want my priest facing away from me the whole mass. But so many scenes in Odyssey. I took
more
this
like
during
the whole
this episode.
ass. Sorry, I just wanted to step back. That's why you want the priest facing away from you.
We're all going to Sunday ass.
Tight. It's tight. That's why there's a whole part of the Catholic Mass that you might not be aware of this, where we just throw quarters and see if we can bounce it off that thing,
or land it between the cheeks. If you can get lodged in there.
If you land it in the crack, you get an indulgence.
I'll say it's an indulgence.
Oh yeah.
See, now I'm imagining those, like, they don't really have these anymore, but those little like charity coin spinner things, those little vortexes you drop in the coin.
That you have at like the Children's Museum or whatever.
But right at the bottom there is just the priest's anus. Like his whole,
that's where the trouble started.
His whole ass is the coin funnel.
Well, aren't there a lot of like medieval drawings of priests with giant funnels coming out of their anuses, or was that just Monty Python? And I'm sort of equating it with actual medieval drawings.
I think
that might just be you. Actually,
I think
that may be you specifically.
Confusing the various visual artworks of Terry Gilliam.
God, I'm sorry. This was off Josh's DeviantArt account. It's in between the Goku inflection.
Yeah. It's all right. I understand your confusion.
Yeah, but so many scenes in Odyssey end with a "let's talk about this later, I'm so busy," and it's like, particularly in the two-parters, right, where they really have to stretch for time.
I think that's one of the funniest observations you've made about the writing of this show specifically,
and that is why it's like perfect for the demographic of kids it's trying to reach.
Right. They're so busy.
Oh no! I mean, kids with parents that are just working all the time.
Yeah. Oh right. Yeah.
But the kids too. Let's be real. The Protestant work ethic doesn't just stop with the adults. It's going to go all the way down.
Josh had to fucking plant tulips all year round. Those bulbs getting all over town.
I mean,
genuinely, siblings just whittling
and the way
shoes.
his people are, you don't buy them. You have to cut them from your neighbor's yard without them spotting you. And Josh's small form was able to help him hide better.
That was the thing. That was one of the advantages. Would get sent out on scouting missions.
Yeah, he wasn't so good at carving shoes, but they still made him do it.
Right.
Yeah, he's whittling.
The one thing that Josh got exempted from was putting a wagon wheel on top of his schoolhouse so that a stork could build a nest there.
That's right, Brian.
What the fuck?
You know so much.
Into so much shit from your horrible vapid culture, Josh.
It is wild to me that we have gone through. I've heard every stereotype so many times, and I thought I fully knew Waluigi. But to learn that at one point he built a wagon wheel on top of Peach Castle for a stork to build a nest.
Yeah,
they're mean too. They have really sharp beaks. They'll stab right through your hand. I'm just imagining, Mario. He's running around and he gets to the Waluigi part of town when he busts open a question mark block, and then some Oli Bolin comes out.
You know what? No, I'm back on my bullshit. If Waluigi has a wagon wheel, Mario has a Magan meal, and I'm just gonna stick with that. Fuck it.
You stay away from my Magan meal.
So we have so much more episode to talk about.
Kind of like we don't need to get all these clips done.
That's true.
But
That's true. Well, okay. Let me trace just a couple pieces here, right? Connie's going ham on the prayer, and meanwhile, over at Whit's End, Eileen, that's Zachary's mom, really, come on, Eileen. She really wants to know what happened with the imagination station, because she's fucking pissed, and she chews Jason the fuck out.
What did you think you were doing by giving him all that false hope?
False hope?
How is he supposed to cope with real life when you've created something that reinforces his desire to escape?
Maybe this will help him cope with real life better than he could before. Maybe it'll increase his desire to do his exercises so he can walk in real life. I don't know.
No, that's the problem. You don't know.
I mean, she's right.
Yeah.
She's just right.
Ultimately, she is the correct one here. Sorry to say that the Whit line of like trust the parents is the way to go on this.
Yeah, and the show is on her side here too. Like they're not trying. They pretty clearly show that Jason has gone out over his skis here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Jason's just too young. He's just a young guy without any kids.
But here's the thing. We have courts. Like, she should sue him. There was no informed consent here for the child, or neither the child nor the guardian.
Do you think that maybe Whit's End has one of those things they do on reality TV shows where it's just like you forego all rights by entering this premises?
I mean, that's what they did after Rodney fell through the skylight.
Yeah, right.
They have a sign on the skylight, actually.
Yes,
you fall through here, you get to be an experimental lab rat.
No, those clauses aren't legally enforceable. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Zach comes back to Whit's End. He wants to go back into the machine. And Jason then tells Zach's mom that she should let him do it. And this sends Jack to 11. Jack is like, no fucking way. You violated the cardinal rule.
It's always been Whit's policy never to contradict parents, particularly in front of the children. And as best as I can tell, it's a rule that's worked well since the place opened.
Well, sure, but what was the harm in trying...
Don't you see? It's like parents are contradicted at every turn by every other institution. They look to Whit's End to help support them.
But I happen to think she was wrong in this case.
Oh, and you're the one who's going to tell parents they're wrong in how they raise their own children?
No, of course not.
That Jack... It's like, oh, yeah, he's right. And then he's like, parents are contradicted at every turn by every other institution. Not us, not focus on the family, not James Dobson, who says, you're raising your kids like a pussy, you need to hit them more.
It's interesting, too, because like at this stage in the show, as opposed to those early episodes we listened to, this is not just the show being a mouthpiece for James Dobson himself, right? At this point, the show has its own voice. It has its own characters. Its writers are doing the things that they want to do. But every so often, we just get this blast of pure ideology.
It's so interesting. It's like, oh, yeah, so the school's inherently anti-parent. The church, I guess, inherently anti-parent. The TV commercial, everything.
Certainly.
Yeah, everything. And I mean, there was certainly a strain in popular culture when we were kids of like, hey, kids, fucking, you know better than your parents. Isn't that fucking cool? Here's Poochie.
I just realized that both of these episodes are just asking one very fundamental question. Whose children are they?
Whose children are they?
Seriously,
AJ?
though, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just that. It's that. This stuff doesn't fucking change.
Yeah. And again, the irony of this, because James Dobson's whole thing was that he worked for a hospital, that
right. USC Medical Center.
That was a last resort for kids suffering from severe mental illness. Right. That did in fact take custody of children away from their parents.
Oh God! But that's the thing, right? That's the other thing too, is that guys like Dobson are still in all of those medical facilities, right?
Yeah.
There is like he is not just a guy. He is a type of guy who actually do believe that beating the shit out of kids is gonna bring them to
and
Jesus
since Dobson,
and cure them.
there are movements within evangelical Christianity. Like the book To Raise Up a Child that go far further.
Yes.
And this is a book that the Duggars read, for instance, that talks about using corporal punishment on your children before they are even a year old.
And the Duggars, famously clean-cut family, do not Google Josh Duggar children.
Yeah.
Don't do it. So, look, we've talked a bit here about like how wild this shit all is. But I think the craziest piece of this is then the equivalency that they make in this very next clip.
This is like those arcade games you created. Why shouldn't I? Look, I'm as keen on new ideas as anybody, but they've got to be developed carefully. You created arcade games, and they were noisy and
fun.
Oh, fun, maybe.
Love that read.
That's what we're trying to do here. We want to create fun with learning.
Oh, come on, Jack. Give me some credit.
Edutainment.
I reprogrammed those machines to include learning, and you approved of them.
Sure. I was for anything that would help the kids and turn down the volume. But we still don't know how much learning the kids are doing when they're dazzled by lights and noise.
This is like, because like Marshall Younger wrote the previous one. So this is like Paul McCusker, like putting him in his place.
And the thesis sort of gets kicked up one more level here too, because now Brian Dern, who's like the local shock jock or whatever, he's gotten word of the miracle machine, right?
Yeah.
And so he gives Jason a call and is like, hey, can I see it? And then this happens.
He's coming over this afternoon.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'll talk to him about it.
And when handicapped kids all over town, maybe all over the state, come to be healed, what then?
Well, look, we'll just deal with that when it happens. I'll establish some rules about how the machine should be used.
Oh, so you're not against rules as such, just the old rules.
Look, Jack, you worry too much. This whole thing will work out fine, trust me. Let the word get out. It could lead to some wonderful things for the kids. Why are you so afraid of this new technology? I mean, it's like a miracle of science.
Because there are no such things as miracles of science.
Jack, how many people die of anthrax every year? How many people die of polio each year?
How many people die of measles? Fuck, wait.
Well, okay.
Hold on, I just looked at the numbers.
Oh, wait, but how many people die of COVID-19? Oh, no.
Well, we were doing so well, but like...
We were doing so
you
well.
know, we don't get people dying of tuberculosis as frequently, or the bubonic plague, for instance. There are, in fact, things that have been done through scientific means that have, in very rare cases, completely eradicated diseases like smallpox.
Right.
And in other cases, reduced them to such a point where it's negligent, where it used to be just like a regular occurrence that a child would just fucking die.
And when these advancements are partnered with public health education and infrastructure, we get measurably better health outcomes. But to go back to measles and COVID, once you start having people think individualistically and sort of questioning, oh, well, this, I don't know about this science, that's when you start to see worse uptake of things that objectively reduce mortality and make people's lives better. And you know, medicine is not a silver bullet. There's nothing that cures everything. There is no panacea, but like, again, it goes back to this fucking ideology piece where I look at this and all I can hear when I hear there's no miracles of science, all I can see is some fucking kid dying in a hospital because their parents refused to get them a fucking measles vaccine. It makes me so mad.
You can make the argument that God is working through the scientists in order to make these like breakthroughs happen. Yeah. And I think that's sort of, where most Christians kind of end up on it. Penicillin came around because God made this person who was then smart enough to dumb enough to leave mold around for a while and then come back. But, it was like an act of God that made that happen. And to that I say, well, you can't, I mean, that I understand more. Yeah. Right. But this belief that if you just pray hard enough, that God will just eradicate COVID-19 from the face of the planet because science doesn't do miracles.
Yeah.
When this episode proves that God doesn't.
Well, that's the
prayers
thing.
don't
Is like
always
I
work.
think the perspective of this episode is like, yeah, it's not just that like, oh, God's gonna handle it. It's like God doesn't fucking handle it. You know, unless he feels like it.
By choice.
Yeah. He's a malicious God who also loves you, but you should suffer.
Yeah.
But I love you so much.
That's kind of where you have to land if you're a modern person, and if you really think that God is omniscient in an active sense, right? Is fully aware of everything that you do and chooses to keep up to date on everything. Then yes, he chooses to stay out of things. Or he's simply just so large that the idea of full knowledge is actually a little bit more abstract than that.
How large is he?
How large is he?
Yeah.
Well, there's one guy who's actually bigger sometimes
Bigger
under
than
certain
God?
circumstances. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could God make a Goku so big?
That even he could not feed it.
Oh, I don't know, God. I don't think I can take another bite.
Yes, you can.
God's power is over 9,000.
But I think there is sort of just a standard cultural reaction to hearing something like Miracle of Science. Right. Like, and I don't think it's necessarily a wrong one. We have had issues with certain drugs that like seem to be pretty great, and then bad things happen. OxyContin, right?
Yes.
We can talk about things like fen or other, diet drugs or various mood stabilizers that it's like, oh, yeah, this is just Valium and it's probably not a good thing to be taking all your life.
Yeah. Ivermectin.
Or ivermectin.
Ivermectin's actually a great drug.
Just not for what for horses.
Well, it's great. It's great for people if people live near like water sources that are contaminated with parasites and they're dealing with parasites. That's why people always bring out, oh, it's an award-winning drug. It's like, yeah, it's a drug that treats a different thing.
But like, and we also like the United States government's long running and very well documented history of using medicine toward actual genocidal ends. This is all known. I'm not saying any of what I'm saying to be like, well, we just need to trust the science and we need to trust the government. It's that you go so far in the other direction, you throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then you end up in a situation where nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to agree on any sort of consensus truth. And these episodes are in 1995, right? And at this point, I think there was still sort of a sense of consensus truth in the American body politic.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And probably
Yeah,
more
yeah.
so than at any other point, right? There was like no difference between the parties whatsoever.
Exactly. Like Bill Clinton's approach to things was effectively, for the most part, the neocon approach.
And which is why the project to take him down was built on him as an individual.
Right.
His criminal dealings or his stuff with Whitewater or eventually his sexual proclivities.
But all this is to say, there's something so interesting about the way that they are framing up all of these ideas in a way that to me shows that they don't know what they're talking about clearly. And we've talked about a lot of reasons that this is the case.
Yeah,
They also don't care about the broader ramifications of what it is that they are saying. All they want to do at the end of the day is close the deal, sort of to what you were saying, AJ, right? It's like, if we go a little too far in this direction, then the kids won't love Jesus. If we go into this direction, they won't care about Jesus enough from their own personal selves. And it's like, you are structuring an entire show not around helping kids actually understand the world in any meaningful way or improving their own creative abilities or intellectual understandings. All you are doing is tailoring a sale to them, and all you want to do is close that deal. Oh, it makes me mad.
Yeah.
And sales are usually your thing, you Dutch boy.
I love sales. I love a deal.
So Whit's End gets fucking swarmed with every disabled kid in like
the tri-state area.
The whole, tri-county area at least. Kids from Connellsville and elsewhere.
Yeah, we've sort of descended back into Rousseau's State of Nature here.
Oh, college boy.
Well, someone's read a book.
The kids are just fucking going like hog wild, right?
Yeah.
This is actually pretty much the same soundscape that we heard in that other Adventures in Odyssey episode about the arcade. They're just reusing everything.
Right, but it's like, these are conservative people. These are conservative thinkers, and they're witnessing the market in action.
Yes,
right?
but
there is a huge demand for this product and one supply.
But they're witnessing a lot of people volunteering to become dependent on something. Now, these people are children anyway, but either way,
they are literally dependent.
This is something Thomas Sowell would fucking vomit on the floor in front of him if he saw this sort of behavior. So Zachary shows up and he's like, I was the first one to do it. Let me back in. His mom drags him out. And this is where we get a really dark,
very dark
Jack Allen clip.
Then I'd rather be in make-believe than stuck in this awful wheelchair. I want to go in.
No, you're coming with me, now.
I won't.
Oh, yes, you will.
No! Leave me alone! I don't want to go! Stop!
Jack, please, help me.
Listen to me, Zachary. You can do as your mother says and go out, or you can be carried out. It's your choice.
But I don't want to go.
I know you don't, but you have to obey your mother. It's up to you how you want to do it.
All right, I'll go. But I hate you for this. I hate all of you.
Fair.
There, Jason. I hope you're satisfied.
There's two ways you're going out of here, kid. In an ambulance or a body bag. It's so dark.
Connie's last moment with her grandmother is also like cards on the table. This is it. And Connie asks her, like, why have I been praying for you all this time then?
Yeah.
And her grandmother says, well, you haven't been praying for me. You have been praying for you. And you should pray again, which
we weren't praying for Connie's grandma.
Yeah.
Connie's grandma was praying for us.
But like, I think that's an interesting perspective. And it's the one thing that you get to if you're a modern person, if you're a realistic person, is that at the end of the day, why do you keep praying to God for something that's going to be futile, something that's not going to be answered by God with a yes? And it's because the reason is actually something beyond the power of divine intervention.
Well, in the idea, too, that prayer sort of gets you in touch with the divine mind is a very charismatic Christian idea.
Yeah,
like
sure.
this one-to-one like link, you're basically jacking into the mainframe when you pray, right? It just reminded me of like Philippians 4:7, which is, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This idea that like there is something bigger than you, and it is only by experiencing a small piece of that bigger thing that you yourself will be able to survive what life throws at you, right?
That was Philippians 4:7, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, I put Philippians 4:8. I'm never getting to the next level.
Of course, the more well-known verse is Philippians 4:13. That's for the real heads out there.
Yeah, what does that say?
I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Right.
And not the imagination fucking station.
No,
Christ has to do it.
Damn it.
I feel like there could be like a really like radical cool version of Jesus where they quote that and then like Jesus offers them like a line and they just do like rails of cocaine.
You have such a beautiful mind, AJ.
You really do. This is why we keep you around. Jack comes by Zachary's place to check in. He's doing the Whit thing, right?
Yeah.
He's going to children's houses after work hours. He says, I'm sorry I had to threaten you, but you were being a little hysterical.
Yeah, he's like, you were being a little bitch.
Great
like,
line.
I needed to put you in your place.
Jack basically lets him know that when he gets that feeling, he needs that spiritual healing. We're all spiritually handicapped without Jesus, he says.
It's like, oh, okay, well.
I came over to tell you something that I think is even more important than whether you walk again or not.
Okay.
See, there's a more important healing I want you to think about.
Like what?
Spiritual healing, Zachary.
Oh, my God.
It's not the handicap on the outside you have to worry about, but the one on the inside.
No, that doesn't.
And without Jesus Christ,
You can't say
we're
that.
all spiritually handicapped.
It reminds me of the episode of Dexter's Laboratory where he wants to become rugged, so he grows a beard. And Action Hank from the TV tells him it's not the beard on the outside, but the beard on the inside.
Funny.
But like, also there are handicaps on the inside.
Yeah, I have one of them.
So you got one of the ones that matters, Josh.
That's right.
But you know what, Josh? I got a cure for you. His name is Jesus Christ. And has he got some cocaine for you, buddy?
But yeah, I did want to take just a moment because we've talked about this at length. But I guess the last piece that I wanted to talk about was exactly sort of what you were just saying, AJ. This idea that, well, you might have trouble in your life, but just give it over to Christ and, it'll be okay.
Let go and let God.
That's right. No. Okay, no. I'm sorry, but just no. Even if you are a very dedicated Christian and you believe fervently and wholeheartedly, there are going to be moments that are too much.
Yeah.
And they are going to be too much whether or not you invoke your own faith. And I just can't. It comes back to the simplicity thing. It comes back to the way that they don't want to actually engage with how difficult these things are. It's pat, it's bullshit. But you know what? At the end of this episode, Connie's grandma finally fucking dies. And Chris lets us know that although we can, this was one of my favorite parts. Chris saying that although we can pray for what we want, ultimately God will give us what is best for us. Then I had to go throw up, not literally, but I just
again, it's like you've developed some of this realism and then you toss it back out because at the end of the day, it's not that Connie's grandmother died for Connie's journey to improve. It's because she died. Yeah, and every single person, except for according to some medieval myth makers, one particular guy of a particular religious belief.
Lazarus.
Yeah. Everybody dies. It just happens. And it's going to hit you. It's going to hit me. Anything. It's going to hit AJ. It's going to hit everybody,
There's not this grand,
what do you know?
It doesn't all happen for a reason. It doesn't happen for your benefit specifically. It fucking happens. Yeah. And you just need to figure out what you're going to do with it.
Yeah. And you know what really sucks is that McCusker gets really, really close to saying something poignant in this episode. And it's in that scene between Connie and Jack where Jack is just there to comfort her. And he does sermonize at her a little bit. But there was a line that actually really got me. And I think it has a lot to do with Katie Lee's performance in this, where she just says, "Thanks for being here, Jack." And she's just I think she also says, "I'm just so tired." And you really feel it in a way. And it's not what Jack is saying. It's the fact that he's there and that he's talking at all, right? The times that I have been comforted most in grief are when someone just sits next to me and they could be talking about anything. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, you're not really hearing it anyway. It's just the fact that there is somebody there who cares about you, who is there to take care of you.
And that's why Connie's grandma wanted Connie there to be praying from this prayer book. It's because it also just brought her comfort to have her granddaughter there and to have this ritual with her.
Yeah, but the show would never admit that because that's not the agenda it's trying to push,
which is so strange because it's like there's nothing unchristian about pointing that fact up.
No, it doesn't mean that the faith is fake, but it comes close to, I guess, an idea that you might be uncomfortable with. It might make you poke holes in ways that you don't want to.
Well, look, if a didactic one-size-fits-all approach to death and mourning is your kind of thing, you're going to have a great time in the second half of this episode. We're going to bury Connie's grandma, and we're going to learn a little more about Eugene. So stay tuned for that right after this.
Daily log number 3892. This is Dr. Oswald Oliver, primary physician for test subject 318. Overall, the patient is stable, showing no outward signs of distress, responding well to light-based stimuli, and reflexes seem on par with previous subjects. The rapidity of the aging suggests 318 will follow a similar trajectory as 317, but thankfully it seems that this subject's pain tolerance is much higher. We've put 318 on 30 milliliters of the serum, which appears to have reduced the mutations significantly. I will continue monitoring and update as needed. Apologies, I feel I should mention. There was a moment during a particularly violent growth spurt where the subject grabbed onto my coat and made eye contact with me. It seemed as if it were trying to communicate with me. Its mouth had obviously been clamped shut to allow the tongue to grow in fully. I didn't know quite what to do, so I took the subject's hand in mine and told it I was there to take care of it, and that everything would be all right. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. There is also the matter of the book. perfectly fine. You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine. Oh my god. Oh my god, is it a wait? That's not possible. Hold on. It's all right. Here. No, it's okay. It's all right. Here. There we go now. It's okay. I've got you. Daily log number 4936. Subject is progressing nicely. I have begun monitoring him in the rocket. The core memory implantation has been going smoothly, but today was difficult. It was one of the more important memories, the day he learns of his son Jerry's death. Many of our early attempts resulted in fairly aggressive responses, chairs thrown, walls punched through. 189 even attacked the messenger, but this one, 318, he didn't fight. He didn't even move from the doorway. He simply looked straight up into the sky, and in his eyes I saw a question. The same question that's been running through my mind these last few months. What kind of God would allow this? What kind of God? This is Dr. Oswald Oliver, Daily Log 498. I don't think I can do this anymore. I have tried to maintain objectivity, remind myself that this is all for a greater good, but it seems I have failed. I have grown to care about this one. I can't explain it, but when he looks at me, I see myself reflected in him. He is not 318. Not to me. He is John. And I can't stand idly by and watch as he suffers so. I am disabling the security protocols. We are going to escape together or die trying, and when you find this, as I know you will, I just want to say, I'm sorry. I failed you. But I made a promise that I would take care of him. And I aim to. John! John, can you hear me? John, say something.
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine. Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met. And wait till you see that sunshiny day. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
One of my favorite things from those last two episodes is that they give a little moment for Bart Rathbone to come on the radio.
Yeah,
and he's just like, "This is the kind of shit what goes down at Whit's End."
Bart Rathbone has been using this incident as an example of how dangerous Whit's End has become over the past few months. The games at my place are safe and mindless, he said this afternoon.
True. Almost like Bart has some plans for world domination, perhaps.
I did take that note. I said Bart's sneaking in.
He sure is.
Sliding in.
The eternal Bart.
And I am sliding in to episode 320, Where is Thy Sting?
Ooh.
The first good title an Odyssey episode has ever had.
I'm not going to, I was mentally trying to cycle through all 319 previous episodes and I couldn't get there.
I saw it. You looked like Benedict Cumberbatch, like going into his mind palace.
Yes.
You're just,
it's my mind place, which is my form of a mind palace.
Oh,
I
okay.
see. Yeah. It was weird you had to put on the Apple Pro headset actually to get that.
But yes, we are back here. June 24, 1995 is when this episode aired, and it's just following right up where we left off. Jack is at Whit's End. He's looking through the Odyssey Times for Connie's grandma's obituary, which prompts Eugene to get a little philosophical. Yeah, that's right, folks. Eugene is in this episode. Great news.
This is another thing where it's like they introduce another conflict into the scene because Jack is talking about how poorly formatted the newspaper is.
That's right.
And
he's
how
not happy.
He's going to need to have a personal conversation with Dale Jacobs on formatting it better.
Which I love. This is very Whit-coded behavior.
It
just
is.
Sticking your nose where it absolutely does not belong and assuming you have subject matter expertise in something you know absolutely nothing about.
Although I will say I've always found newspapers confusing. Just put the whole article in one place instead of splitting it up.
Jump it around.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to put your eye towards the ads.
Well, I don't fucking care. It makes it hard to read.
But I like the physical action of like going searching for it. I don't
Brian,
know.
I've got great news for you about physical newspapers and their trajectory in the 21st century.
Well, I bet I have a solution that could save their business.
Oh, yeah?
Don't do the one thing that I don't like. I'm sure that's why everything sucks for you.
Fucking got their asses.
Yeah.
They have a line in here too that I thought was very interesting, which is just that Eugene is just like 11 lines to sum up a life. And I was just like, this is the most freshman year of college 10-minute one act.
Yeah, but that's
ever
kind of
seen.
Eugene, isn't it? Like he kind of is that guy.
He's in college. I get that, but the problem is that the writers of this episode, which is McCusker, let's be very clear, think it's just like, yeah, man. That's real deep and profound shit. And I'm like, God, like I know so many writers who are out writing this motherfucker like 10 years before he came. Like, I mean, get the fuck
an audio drama, goddamn.
Well, here's the thing, AJ. There's just not really a venue for conservative playwrights out there. We need some sort of a conservative theater festival.
Yeah, that comes
annually.
Brian, do I have some news for you?
Oh, is it formatted on one page with the article all together?
Yeah, it sure is, Brian. Wow, you're it's like you programmed this. You know what's real fun about it too is that it's also a festival that I may have submitted a play for last year and was rejected for.
You submitted a play to that fucking thing in Ohio?
Yeah. It was about a man who was trying to get the largest dildo he could possibly get up his ass, and at the end he looked out the audience and said, "I'm James Dobson," and then there was a blackout.
Good.
Did I write this?
Yeah.
That's almost as good as mine.
No, his name wasn't XQJXY Dobson.
Look, XQG Dobson is a very important character, and you have to learn how to pronounce his name.
Listen,
XQG Dobson.
I hate to take this delightful discussion and pull it back in, but we got to get through this episode, boys.
Yeah, we do. We got to go.
Connie comes across an old music box at her grandma's place that plays an old hymn.
Sure does.
This music box is going to matter for plot reasons.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Reverend from Connie's grandma's church in New York has come by the place to basically say hi to Connie and June. And then, amidst all of this, it's like, oh no, we need to pick Dad up from the airport. That's right, folks. Bill is back in town and he is not happy.
My mother had just stayed in New York or moved in with me in April like I wanted.
No, don't be ridiculous, Bill. We were happy to have her with us.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about my mother dying here in Odyssey. That's what.
Oh. We could reschedule the meeting with the funeral home. Maybe it'd be better if we...
Don't reschedule anything, June. Let's just get this over with, all right? I want to bury my mother and get out of here.
Okay, honestly, mood.
Yeah, he's going through it. Pretty authentically.
But he's doing it wrong. And here's the reasons why. Grief can only be one
because
way.
He does not have the Lord.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, Bill is pissed off mostly at himself. But he's also pretty unhappy that, like, his mom died in Odyssey, which, again, mood.
Yeah.
It's like there's a number of things here where we are clearly supposed to be like, wow, look at this guy. Look at the way that he's grieving.
Yeah.
If it were me, I simply would not be grieving like that.
That's, I think, the most insidious part about this particular episode, which is just that there's a lot of stuff that's put on Bill that I don't think is entirely his fault. Look, he is not a good guy.
No.
I don't think he's a good father. And I think there are moments in this where he could show an ounce of compassion towards his daughter who lost her grandmother that she very much loved. But I think that it is unfair to completely attack Bill for unraveling like he does because of the guilt that he feels for not being there for his mom because he was just drowning in poon on a cruise ship.
There's really like a get a load of this guy kind of thing going on, isn't there?
It just sucks because people go through grief in so many different ways. Some people are just completely shell shocked. Some people, do the classic tearing their hair out, crying their eyes out kind of thing. Some people just get like I don't know, very funny about it. Like they just get very like gallows humor. Like that's how they like work their way through it. And to say that as a Christian, you have an obligation to like be like sad about it. Like, you know, Connie talks about crying and like remembering good times or whatever, but ultimately they're better off because they're with Jesus now.
Well, I figured that this one should be more like a celebration, you know? We lost her, yeah, but she's home now. She's in heaven with Jesus, and I can't think of any
Connie, hold on. If you're thinking that my mother's funeral service is going to be some kind of a party, well, then you're on the wrong track.
Not a party, Dad, but it needs to be more than just a lot of talk about death. I think we ought to balance our loss with heaven's gain. It doesn't have to be sad, but kind of happy in a way.
No offense, sweetheart, but I don't want a pie-in-the-sky service for my mother, okay?
I mean, look, if my mom had died in Odyssey, I would be feeling the exact same fucking way.
I think that Connie's grandma is the first woman of God from New York City, right? That's ever shown up in Odyssey.
Yeah,
like
and
someone
we've also-
from the big city. And the Reverend is also from New York.
By the way, the Reverend is played by an actor named Charles Howerton. No relation. So anyway, Charles Howerton was in a bunch of like 70s garbage. He was in a pretty infamous piece of blaxploitation called Black Gestapo, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Okay.
Whoa!
Wow.
So it's just like, it's fun to see a guy whose career is just entirely schlock and then adventures in Odyssey.
Were you guys as surprised as I was that when the New York minister showed up, he was like somebody who they were empathetic toward and who was like doing Christianity the right way?
I wasn't
unquote?
surprised because he was Connie's grandma's pastor.
Sure.
Interesting.
They weren't going to edit. The only character that's going to be of any interest in this episode is Bill. No other conflicts.
Honestly, I think that's smart because it, you know, in terms of like providing just a sole antagonist, I think that's kind of all that Odyssey can ever juggle at once. Is just, and you know, I think that's smart. But yeah, it was a surprise that they weren't immediately distrustful of this guy from the big city, which is a way that maybe it is because Connie was originally from LA, and so there is sort of like a they locked eyes, like, so we both like tall buildings and jazz, and they're like, great, we're on the same wavelength.
But Bill here, he is the dude who sucks, and honestly, were it not for the fact that they're putting their finger on the scale so heavily, I would like this a lot.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a portrayal where he sort of sucks in a way that is maybe empathetic and relatable and we're not immediately judging him versus what they are doing here? What is that difference?
The difference is it's not made by focus on the family.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's so much that we just bring to this because of who wrote this episode. And also just because we have met Bill before. We have also had a bunch of episodes where he's kind of out of our range, but we know what he's up to and it's some stupid bullshit, right? So we're taking all of the baggage with us.
I think there would be one thing too where, I mean, I like the idea of Bill taking control of the funeral and having like Connie have a moment where she's just like, but you weren't even here.
Yeah, that would be more interesting if you have characters who then start to actually like be judgmental. Right.
Yeah.
And Connie's too Christian to do that now. Christians are never judgmental.
Right. Famously.
Especially evangelicals.
Especially not Whit.
Yeah. Never once.
Just Jack shows up at the funeral. Okay, Bill. You can leave or I can carry you out.
But your father's perspective seems very much what I'd expect from someone who believes in... what does your father believe in?
Damn.
Nothing as far as I know.
So for him, death is a big, empty nothingness.
Alas, take it from one who has explored many philosophies of life and death. If he considers death a void, then it may make him wonder if even life itself is a void as well. Few things are more certain to make people search for meaning in their lives than when face to face with the meaning of death.
This doesn't
that
feel
doesn't
like
make any sense.
This doesn't
to
feel
me
true to Eugene
And
at
what
all.
exactly is your thinking on the meaning of life and death?
Oh, well, for me, the meaning of life and death is, to get back to work on the displays upstairs. See you tonight, Connie.
That's right. Eugene just read Candide and he was like, yes, the entire purpose of life is that we cultivate our garden.
He got a PTSD flashback right
Yeah.
there. Like he was just right back in hell in the imagination station crying out for Whit.
Which is why he must swallow the Voltaire pill.
Absolutely.
Apparently.
It's just so strange because it's like, yeah, but you also treat life as a void because you're like, the next life is going to be so much fucking better. I feel like this argument, what it can lead to is a lot of Christians thinking, but I'm a Christian, so I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless of the actions that I do, I'm going to heaven because I'm a Christian already, you know, and there is sort of like a little bit of leeway in there, I think, where like people will sort of go out of their way to do good things because they think that they're being watched all the time. That's sort of the way it goes about it. But really, in actuality, the people who are the most vocal are the ones doing the horrible things, but being like, no, but I'm doing it with my good heart and my good Christian heart. And that is why I am doing a good thing.
Yeah.
And you are the bad one. I don't know. I feel like maybe you should live life and be nice to people without the guarantee that there's a reward on the other side, that maybe the void makes it that this is all there is and that you should make it the fucking best thing it should be because that is all there is.
They cannot countenance the existence of any other approach to life other than this sort of pure nihilism that even nihilists don't necessarily ascribe to.
And I think that's because they have not given themselves space to consider it, right? When you look at...
Excuse me, Paul McCusker has totally picked apart his beliefs and become an Anglican, right? He's been on a journey.
When you look at the sort of body of what they create here, it's so clear that they're not willing to countenance ideas that scare them, because that would then mean wrestling with those ideas.
Yeah.
And that is in and of itself inherently scary.
Yeah. We can't have more people abandoning their Methodism for the Church of England.
Right.
God save our noble king. He'll survive another month, but probably not.
Keep going.
He's got cancer in his bones, but we can't say those tones.
Oh, wow.
Because he is our king.
Okay.
Yeah.
I come on him.
See, Josh, you keep blaming all the cum jokes on AJ and me. No, it's just AJ. He can't help himself.
No, he can't.
It's just his mind goes straight to jism.
It's really incredible that we magicked our way into Ong's hat without him. Maybe we detected his absence and therefore.
Yeah, no. This has all been a psyop.
Yeah, well, that was all part of the ARG associated with that episode, is that you discover AJ in his swimming pool full of seminal fluid.
Well,
next to me, 9 portraits of the king.
Well, I unfortunately am going to have to get back into some seminal fluids here.
Yeah.
The seminal fluids of this plot.
Yeah, we gotta bring our cum tributes over from King Charles III to Bill Kendall once more.
That's right. Because Bill is now sort of in a long dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Right. He really just he's going through it. And he's found the music box from earlier, and it's got his name on the bottom, and it's got a Bible verse. But it's like, wait, I would never give my mother a music box with a Bible verse on it.
This raises like plot questions that are very uncomfortable, which is like, yeah, already the grandmother seems like she was a lifelong Christian. We know nothing about Bill's father. But Bill has never been a Christian. June Kendall has never been a Christian. Connie discovered what Christianity was through Whit. So presumably did not even really know that her own grandmother was a Christian. Like, remember, she's like,
good point.
Whit's Christian, but don't worry, it doesn't mean he hangs around airports.
He's not like one of those.
Which maybe her grandmother did. I don't know. So grandma had this music box. It plays a hymn, etc. It has a Bible verse engraved onto it. And it also has Bill's name as though...
It says from Bill.
From Bill with this Bible verse. Presumably, he was the one who got it engraved. And it's like, so did he forget that he went to church as a child? When did Connie's grandma start going to church? Like, what was any of this? And it turns out that Bill didn't engrave that. His mother just like engraved that herself.
As a reminder?
I don't even think he sent it to her. Like, I think she just bought it for herself and was like, from Bill, Bible verse.
That makes no sense. It's like it's trying to set up like a MacGuffin, and it doesn't pay off in any meaningful way.
Right.
It is the kind of behavior that makes me understand why Bill is the way he is. If he had his mother like guilt him by just buying a gift that she herself engraved.
Fair fucking play, right? Because the idea seems to be that she got it engraved in this way so that he would find it after she died.
It's a little fucking time
and
bomb.
then get guilt tripped into becoming a Christian? Question mark?
Yeah.
Yes. This is the most step 1, step 2, step 3 prophet I've ever seen.
Like,
wild. But prophet is spelled P-R-O-P-H-E-T.
Well, and anyone who has had like, let's say, an overbearing Christian parent who knows that you are off the path, let's say, like, people have experienced this.
I think our listeners have experienced this.
I think that's a resonant experience for a lot of folks. I think a way that it was dramatized quite well was with Stephen Karam in the play The Humans, because their parents, the first thing you hear about them as they're walking through the door is that they're always sending them fucking email forwards, little Catholic email forwards about, praying the rosary or whatever. And it's just adds a very real, very funny thing. And Bill, of course, like rejects this whole thing. It almost seems like maybe there was just a previous draft where Bill stopped being a Christian because he was mad at God, which is the old chestnut that, of course, shows
that's
up
what
in
they
God's
should have done, because like that would have made this make a little bit more sense. It would have made it even more cliche, but at least it would have made sense from a plot perspective.
Yeah.
Instead, we just sort of have Bill like resisting the call of the spirit, I guess. To the point that once he does show up to the visitation for his own mother, he is 100% fucked up.
Oh, Bill, what's happened to you?
I am grieving the loss of my mother the best way I know how. You do it by having happy funerals, and I do it by trying to forget.
And what exactly are you trying to forget?
That would be telling now, wouldn't it?
What would you like to do? We can't take him inside.
Oh, his things are still in our car. I don't think he ever checked into the hotel. We'll take him home.
We will?
Yes, he can stay in the guest room.
I want to go in first. I want to see my mother.
You'll see her tomorrow. People are in there paying their respects, and you wouldn't want them to see you like this, would you?
Like what?
Bill, we're going home.
I've made a mess of it all, haven't I? My marriages, my life. I couldn't even see my mother before she died. I ruined everything.
It's a good performance.
Yeah. The writing could be a little bit. They could allow those swings to just go bigger, like cut those previous lines and just go to "I ruined everything," right? And like let him be more of a mess. But like the performance really rescues it here. And again, it's like, this is a real thing. This is a way that people handle, especially a really messy relationship with death, where he wasn't there when she went.
They do like blame him for not being there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird, because how would he have known when he booked the cruise? How would he it's not like they can like inform him. This is 95, right?
When you say they blame him, do you mean the characters or the writers, or both?
Both. I think both. The characters maybe less so.
Well, there is a whole thing when they're like trying to reach him, and they're like, he's on a cruise, and everyone's like, oh, fucking course, he's on a cruise.
Yeah, but like, how could he have known?
Right.
He could
his
know
own
that
mother
his mom was
was
gonna have a heart attack.
She was like downplaying her own health issues.
That's
Even
true.
though she needed someone to take care of her, it really seemed like the way she was saying things to others was that, I need help now, but it could be years. It could be a very long time before I'm gone.
Him feeling guilty about not being there, I think completely tracks, because he wasn't, right? And that would be something that I think any normal person would be like, yeah, of course I'd feel guilty about not being at the bedside when she went. But it is so weird that the writers are just like, well, it's because he was on a cruise, because that's just the kind of guy he is. I'm like, look, I hate to say that I agree with Focus on the Family on something, but I mean, cruises suck. Don't go on them. But like, that's not any reason to like say he's a bad person.
No, I mean, I think it would make more sense if they were sort of blaming the cruise. The characters were blaming the cruise as sort of a stand-in for the fact that he sucks and is never around and doesn't take ownership over sort of himself. as opposed to literally blaming the cruise and be like, well, were he not on the cruise? Like, that's not really the point here. But that's like a level of sophistication above what this show is generally able to accomplish. So I don't know.
It's very possible that at the very moment that Bill's mother died, he was watching the 90-minute cruise cut of Chess, the musical.
Yep. Well, just railing several of the passengers who had not put lamb's blood above their doors.
There's just some equity actor struggling to get by who at one point gets like a national tour of Frank Wildhorn's The Civil War. And he's just like, pity the child.
We all know that he's got flashbacks of doing back shots on all these passengers in his head, but like, they can't make that explicit. This is a show for children after all. And
you go from coming so hard you forget your own name to seeing your mom dead in the ground.
That's right,
I'll
AJ.
tell you, that's life.
But yeah, the funeral happens. We get a Bible verse montage. Connie gets some nice words
the
in.
montage of you. She's like, I want this to be a celebration, not like an ordinary funeral. And then it's just an ordinary
it's
funeral.
It's just the most boring Bible verses.
It's a normal fucking funeral. It's every funeral I've ever been to.
I took the note. I thought there was nothing worse than a Catholic funeral. I was wrong.
No, you were wrong. It's a Protestant funeral.
No. Okay, I got to go to bat for the Protestants because the funerals are still shorter.
That's true.
We're still in and out in an hour and ready to eat food.
Or less, yeah.
As we recall from my funeral that I went to,
the funeral of you where you died,
where I died. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Only other thing I will say about the food at a Protestant funeral is if we're talking Dutch Reformed, no. Those ham sandwiches, disastrous.
Oh,
you don't even
mayo
fuck
for days?
with that shit. No, not even mayo. So much worse.
No, you got to go to the Lutherans because they'll just fucking drown you in casserole.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, I'm getting PTSD flashbacks to those sandwiches, and I'd like to move on. So,
no, of course.
The last little bit of this episode, then, after the funeral, after Bill fucks off because he's too emotionally immature to handle this because he's not a Christian, right, is that June, Connie's mom, is, well, she seems to be sort of open to maybe the leadings of a certain spirit.
Yeah, maybe all that prayer did something. Did pay off. That's the word I'm looking for. Maybe it turns out Connie wasn't praying for grandma. And she wasn't praying for herself. She was praying for
her mom.
She prayed for June Kendall, who is now a Christian. Congrats.
That's right.
I didn't clip it. But it's just like, will you help me pray or whatever. And then
Chris gives us one more hard sell at the end.
Yeah.
Like, you should go out there and convert all of your friends to Jesus Christ.
Convert every single one of your moms.
I fucking hate this show, and we still have one more episode to go.
We do.
But on the subject of conversion, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a very small note, but it is weird that when Bill reads the Bible note, he pronounces it 1 Timothy. But if he were like someone who had no idea about the Bible, he would absolutely, like Trump, say 1 Timothy.
Yeah, that's a good catch. But again, maybe he grew up going to church.
Yeah, I think it has to be.
But then he also has
he
no knowledge
know.
of 1 Timothy beyond just knowing how to say it right. So we don't know. We don't know, folks.
I don't know, and frankly, I don't fucking care.
I care.
Correct.
I'm so mad.
When did Mildred convert? What is Mildred's journey? I need a novel right now, Paul.
I feel like by the ends of these episodes, AJ, you're usually the one who's just hopping mad. I am like a burning fucking white hot rod of incandescent rage.
Yeah. Oh, you are. Don't.
No, come on. Come on.
You are. Yeah, no, you're a rod.
You could have done the glowing ball of nickel or something, but no, you went with rod.
No, yeah, balls and rods.
No, ball, singular, AJ. Get your head out of the cum gutter.
The Turning Point, episode 322 of Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah, we've skipped over one episode and jumped over to the next one. So these are all right next to each other. Because again,
let's get out of grief. Let's go to something really fun and hip and happy.
No. This episode begins back at Whit's End with Jack, Connie, and Eugene. Eugene is wearing a suit because Katrina's dad is in town.
Yes.
That's right. Remember Katrina? That's Eugene's girlfriend sometimes.
The hurricane?
She's back in pog form.
He's back in pog form. She's back in pog form. We're all back in pog form. And Eugene goes up to the Bible room, and there's like this weird slapstick thing where he like pushes Samson's pillars aside and gets dust all over his nice suit jacket. And then this completely inscrutable interaction happens between Eugene and Katrina's dad.
I'd like you to meet my father, Armitage. Daddy, this is Eugene.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Eugene.
As am I, Mr. Shanks. That is to say, it's a pleasure to salute you, sir. I mean, likewise, I'm sure. If you understand my meaning.
Yes, Eugene, shall we go to lunch?
Maybe Eugene would like to clean himself up a little first.
Huh?
I'm not sure he wants to go to this particular restaurant looking like he just got out of a drywall contest.
What the fuck is a drywall contest?
Obviously, you're not a bowler. So I need to say something. For our British listeners, you may have just clued into something here. Katrina Shanks's father is named after a toilet.
Yeah.
Her father's name is Armitage Shanks, which is a famous plumbing company in the UK where Paul McCusker, who wrote this episode, lives.
So he did get more British.
He certainly did.
I guess.
Yeah.
But the dad isn't even a toilet character. That's so strange.
No. This is why they make a character later named Wooten Bassett.
I mean, he could have at least done the thing of like, my name is Armitage Shanks, I work in plumbing, and then it would have been like a ba-dump bump.
Yeah,
but we don't even get that.
This is just Paul McCusker having a little in-joke for himself and his completely American audience and his completely American co-workers.
A thought that I just had is that we probably have introduced more British people to Adventures in Odyssey than Focus on the Family has. And that's very upsetting to me.
We're spreading the good word, Josh. We're really getting it out there. There was one line in here that actually got a genuine laugh out of me because it felt like such a Simpsons line. But Eugene brings down the Samson and Delilah exhibit and he says, Samson was supposed to bring down the temple, not I. And it's like, that's just such a Milhouse line and delivery, which is funny because Milhouse obviously in this episode.
Yes, that's Pamela Hayden, who also plays Katrina Shanks.
What? The voice of Katrina Shanks is the voice of Milhouse?
You didn't know that, Brian?
Milhouse from The Simpsons Milhouse.
Yeah, the same one.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And her dad's a literal toilet?
A literal fucking toilet, dude.
I want you to have that image in your head for the rest of the episode. He's just like a urinal.
He's just walking around.
No, I want the seat to move.
Sure.
I want the seat to talk, to flap around as the mouth. Googly eyes on the tank. Come on.
So Katrina's dad, Armitage Shanks, the literal toilet, is basically just here to fuck with Eugene. And it's also not at all made clear in the writing of this episode how much is supposed to be like kayfabe or not.
Yeah.
We really have no understanding of who Armitage Shanks is as a character other than Katrina's dad.
And he's a wasp. He
is a
speaks
wasp.
and does in a waspy way.
And or maybe he's a fucking Claremont guy.
Yeah, but
because
like Eugene is just like him doing a dinner for schmucks, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. We get this interaction and it's fucking wild.
Our department has a 5-year grant to produce statistics related to, any number of topics needed for research.
No, a grant, huh? Sponging off the taxpayers, then?
Yeah, I beg your pardon?
Daddy.
I suppose you're on some kind of a scholarship, too.
Well, as part of the grant, yes.
See? I think students should make their own way through college. I did.
Daddy, that's nonsense and you know it.
Tell me, Eugene, when are you going to get a real job?
What's going on here?
I don't know. I think this is just how wasps are, according to Paul McCusker.
Yeah, I guess. But also, I just feel like if you're over the age of like 8 or 9, daddy should be off the table. That's just my that is a pet peeve of mine, but it's just like
that's your issue with this?
Supposed to refer to them as father, mother,
Yes.
or by their full name including middle.
I
and
think
the last
my
3
bigger-
digits of their social security.
I think my bigger problem is just hearing Milhouse say daddy that much is just a little bit it breaks my brain a little bit.
Milhouse?
But oh, for
In
God's
this
sake.
episode? What do you mean Milhouse?
I'm gonna drown you in the pond. I'm gonna put you there with Mikey the Mouse.
Go right ahead, but I have my high water jeans on and my legs will be bone dry.
Oh boy. So Katrina's dad, Armitage Shanks.
Yeah, he sounds like Ian McShane. Am I crazy?
Well,
like
it's time for me to tell you who the voice actor was, AJ.
It was
Ian McShane.
It was Bernard Erhard.
Okay.
Which is a great name. Bernard Erhard.
Yes.
He played the King of Slumberland in Little Nemo.
Oh, shit.
He's not the only Little Nemo voice actor for some reason. We had a couple others on this show, but that movie just particularly traumatized AJ and me.
I still have nightmares.
I've never seen it. We'll have to do an episode on it sometime.
No, it's totally worthless. No, I watched it as like a teenager, and I was like, this is just a bad movie.
Okay, we'll watch it on stream.
It might be interesting to watch. It has an interesting production history, and we could talk about like the founding of comic books and things like that. But like trash, just garbage film that somehow Ray Bradbury and Hayao Miyazaki were both a part of.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't know. I haven't watched it in a really long time, but the visuals, it has to be doing something right if the visuals of it have stuck with me.
No,
like,
it's just
for
because
this
you
long
were
and
that.
for me to like have those kind of nightmares.
Just because you were that little. And the whole movie operates on the brain of a 3-year-old. And 3-year-olds are really fucking stupid and make bad movies.
Oh, well, I was built different. So
Your movies were good, actually.
I was making masterpieces at age 3.
Well, you know who's not making masterpieces at any age? Eugene Meltner.
No.
He's blowing it.
Yeah.
He's blowing it.
He keeps foisting himself by his own petard.
Yeah.
You know, he misplaces his wallet at the dinner.
Yeah. There's a fun transition from Samson destroying the whole Philistine temple, whatever, to the dinner table where like they're still mid-conversation and then suddenly Eugene has spilled water all over everyone. Again, Paul McCusker knows how to use the form, and he plays with it in these really fun little ways in a mostly extremely boring episode.
Yeah, really boring.
And Eugene is like, I'm gonna pay the check, and then he can't, and you know.
This guy is blundering all over his bus. And Katrina's dad, it turns out, was just testing Eugene's patience, intentionally being a dick to see how Eugene would respond.
Yeah.
And then this leads to this very strange conversation between Katrina and her dad, where he's like, well, I actually was just doing this because it seems like you care about him more than just as a friend. And also, he's not a Christian, and you're a Christian.
He's not a Christian!
And you need to be on the same page about faith. And I'm doing all of this because I'm your father and I'm wise? ? What the fuck is going on?
Because he's not a Christian. She just
Presumably.
converted. But he's like, well, you need to have. I don't. But his whole thing to Katrina is that she needs to shit or cut bait.
Eugene, meanwhile, freaks out to Jack, right? Because he's had a terrible time at this dinner. And it turns out that Katrina's concerns about like, well, I'm a Christian, he's not a Christian. Well, Eugene has the exact same concerns, but sort of from the other side, right? And here, Jack goes full fucking Whit mode where he's like, well, this might not be my business. But
every positive thing we had to say about Jack, and it's all gone now.
But yeah, it's this idea of like, you know, as the Bible says, you don't want to be unequally yoked, right? If you have different faith beliefs, one of you will hold the other back. And, you know, because the ultimate objective is for everybody to become a Christian, if what you are doing is not in the service of everybody becoming a Christian, then it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah.
Everybody loves
This
Christian.
is a lot of episodes. Every time Eugene and Katrina do something, we always have the thing where like each scene happens twice. It's like they were supposed to cut one or the other, and then we just have both in there.
We just get the fucking dad's got an idea beat again.
Yeah, we get it's Han Solo talking to Jabba and then talking to Greedo.
I actually think this episode is indicative of a lot of other like McCusker-esque flourishes because it's actually not about the characters at all. It is actually about writing a sitcom. It is about Eugene realizing that he is in a sitcom.
Sure.
And it is about him dealing with the fact that he is trapped in a never-ending cycle and is McCusker literally putting himself into many different roles saying, hey, listen, so our listenership is like, they got to get together or they're not going to get together. You have to make this decision now because we've been fucking spinning our wheels for like, 100 episodes at this point. Let's just fucking do this. Let's pull the trigger one way or the other. And to McCusker's credit, they choose the more interesting one, I think. They could have just had them get together here.
Yeah.
Eugene could have just converted. But again, he shows incredible restraint at not making Eugene a Christian immediately.
Well, and the sort of in-world reason given for this is this idea that like everybody needs to experience it on their own time and at their own pace. Which, first of all, very strange because like you'll also just as quickly hear like, we got to get him now.
Gotta do it.
They say they do both at the same time. But here is Connie talking to Katrina a little bit about how these sorts of things work.
The only thing I can think to do is pray.
Pray? But how? I mean, for what?
Pray that God will bring someone into Eugene's life who will have an impact. who penetrate his defenses.
Pray for someone else?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Katrina, but it won't be you. If I wasn't sure before, I'm sure now. In fact, you're probably getting in the way. Maybe we all are.
What?
Well, they explain the idea. Because, then it comes down to a confrontation between Katrina and Eugene, where this idea gets a full rundown of, I'm just going to run it. We're just going to play it.
Maybe the problem has been us. Me, even Whit, Connie, Jack, Whit's End. All of us.
Well, how so?
We've given you a very safe and reasonable environment. One that doesn't demand anything of you. It's as if you've been inoculated against Christianity, like the flu. You've been given enough of a dose in order to become immune to it. You've had just enough Christianity to become immune to its impact.
Oh, I thought there weren't any miracles of science.
Yes! I listened to this and I'm like, that's almost an insightful thing. That's actually kind of a weirdly self-aware statement to make. Yeah. That sometimes evangelicals, are they perceive themselves as so accommodating of other people that it's just people get used to it and then they don't want to convert.
Yeah.
Right.
It just becomes the cultural milieu that someone is in.
And so they're not being pressured up. But that's the thing, is that what this episode doesn't really offer is okay, but then how do you convert someone like Eugene? And I know the show will offer a solution to that. Yeah. But it feels like it's it's going to have to be a major change of some kind. It's either going to have to be, this is a wild pull, but I just watched this movie called The Puffy Chair, which is a film I hated when I was 16 years old. And I actually think is actually a kind of a brilliant movie now, but it was the Duplass brothers first movie. And one of the things in that is it's a breakup movie, right? Mm-hmm. Over the course of the whole thing, it's just about this one relationship slowly devolving. And at the end, spoilers, they break up. But Mark Duplass has a conversation with his dad while sitting on the porch and asks his advice about what do I do here? And he says, well, son, you now know as much about this relationship as you are ever going to know. So you now have to make the choice of whether you stay or whether you go. I know you're waiting for a big moment to force your hand one way or the other, but I'm telling you that moment is not coming. So you have to make the choice. And I feel like Odyssey is going to have a big thing happen. That is my guess, is that there's going to be a big thing that happens that forces Eugene to make the choice, as opposed to himself choosing to be Christian, because that's what happened with Connie. Mm-hmm. So that's how Connie was converted.
So you think that Eugene will have a moment where he finally says to himself, the time has come?
Yeah. I think so.
Well, have I got good news for you? Shot called. I think the thing that's so wild to me about this interaction too is that after Katrina breaks up with Eugene, there's this moment with her dad, which is very Agent, you have completed the mission after fucking killing a guy, And it's what is this? What's going on here?
I feel like the dad would just make more sense if he was just a guy who hated Eugene. Right.
Yeah.
There's too much confusion in what they're trying to do with Armitage Toilet.
He knows too much.
Yeah.
He is just Paul McCusker, who has graced the
world.
And of course he
Dobson
depicts
ended
himself
up
as a
in
toilet.
Odyssey. It's just McCusker has ended up in Odyssey as a sentient toilet.
It happens.
Fill me up with your golden juice. See? Went the whole episode without doing a cum thing, because I was ready to do a piss thing.
We almost got all of them. We need to get saliva, snot.
Okay, if we're counting above the waist fluids, there's so many. There's hundreds of fluids.
We're just talking about number.
We got yellow bile. We got black bile.
I'm strictly talking about number one and other number one, as I like to call it.
I'm looking up for number one.
Oh my God.
But I think
it's always I this and I that. What happened to us?
Yeah, but I think what's really important, I do want to get very serious for a second, because I think the way that they've written Katrina's last line, for a while at least, is setting up what the show is going to become, where things are about to go immediately, and also the things that are going to hang up in the air for Katrina and where she's going to be, what her relationship with Eugene is going to be going forward, because this ends up becoming an important thing for the entire rest of the run of Adventures in Odyssey through the present. And so I just want to play this line and I want us to discuss what we think of it.
Is this the untimely end of Millhouse?
Wait, Millhouse?
If you've enjoyed this episode, we have plenty more just like it at patreon.com/worstofall for $5 a month or $10 a month if you're feeling particularly generous and would like to listen to Lad's Cast, our monthly monthly live to tape show where we shoot the shit about whatever is on our mind. Thanks for listening to this week's episode.
They have both turned around from their cameras.
Worlds.
They're shunning me Amish style.
I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible
and you're not
AJs.
listening to me. I wanted to discuss it. It's serious. I'm the worst of all possible Brians. Bye.
See you next week.